Yeah, you read that title right. Do you want to learn how to beat Aeternus? Well, my friend, we're here today to figure this out together as a team. Why, you may ask? For science, for research, but mostly for entertainment. Welcome everybody to a brand new video. I hope you all are having a fantastic day. Since you clicked on this video, there's a good chance you have heard of the levels surrounding today's topic. But if you haven't, allow me to introduce to you Aeternus by Riot, Riamu, Ice Cave, and more. Now, looks can be deceiving. Aeternus isn't just your standard upcoming list level. This bad boy right here is actually borderline impossible for today's standards. Being only about 67 seconds long, Aeternus is an absolute beast. More on that shortly. All you need to know right now in this moment is that Aeternus is a lot harder than many of the upcoming top 1 levels you are all familiar with. So now you may be asking, what's with the title? You know how Aeternus can be verified? What? Zallitz? Are you out of your damn mind? Kinda. So the title of this video isn't entirely wrong. I actually will be exploring with you guys how Aeternus can be beaten, but in a bit of a different way. You're probably thinking about such videos as how to beat Killbot and how to beat Erebus, but these videos only apply to levels that are actually possible in this day and age. So I figured, why not make a how to beat video on a level that's unbeatable in this day and age? It may not be formatted as you may typically expect, and we're going to divide this video into certain sections for what I'm talking about. Obviously, I'm not actually going to teach you all the little tricks and nuances to tackling a level like Aeternus head on, but rather think on a broader scale. What path will the community have to take in order for Aeternus to someday be verified? How close are we as of today to beating the level? And where do we even draw the line of what we consider to be impossible or not? Well, my friends, stay tuned. All will be answered. Thank you to all of our tier 2 members and server boosters as well. Y'all help me out much more than you think. So big shout out to every last one of you guys. And a quick little side promo, I stream here on YouTube somewhat regularly, so a little sub with the bell couldn't hurt, so you know when I go live. You know, just saying. And now, let's begin. Hold your horses there, bro. Before we even get started talking about a subject like this, we need to set the precedent for the rest of the video. Do I believe Aeternus will be completed one day? Honestly, yeah, we have seen time and time again that players in the Geometry Dash community will continue to go against the odds and beat harder and harder levels, even ones thought to be straight up impossible. I'm adding this in the script at the last second, but my point was just proven this morning when news broke out that Unnerf's the Coop in Circles, a level that came out nearly 10 years ago, has finally been verified. Yeah, and we all thought that was impossible. Just saying. Even though I hold the firm belief that Aeternus can actually be beaten someday, I should clarify that the only way this level could ever be beaten is with the extension Clicks Between Frames, a mod that gives much better precision on your inputs rather than relying on the 240 ticks per second in vanilla GD. Despite CBF not being backed by RobTop as of today, remember that we're talking about Aeternus. By the time Aeternus is even close to being verified, who knows? Maybe CBF will be implemented in the actual game and become a standard feature for all. I should mention that I'm not going to be doing any deep dive on whether Aeternus will be rated once it's verified. That's not my concern for this video. Going back on topic, I strongly believe Aeternus is only possible with CBF enabled. If you watch the Aeternus frame perfect counter by Latim, you'll know exactly what I mean. Really quick, something that I should have clarified before in a previous video is that frame perfects do not determine a level's difficulty. Just as Mike has said,
just because Shardscapes has 29 frame perfects does not make it harder than fucking unnerved sound Clubstep.
So I apologize for the confusion in the past. I should have cleared that up sooner. The amount of frame perfects Aeternus has is actually bewildering. Take Grief for example. According to Doggie's video on the amount of frame perfects Grief has, there are 237 frame perfects on 60 FPS, with 11 of those being frame perfects on 120 FPS. That's a lot, but on the contrary, Aeternus has only 212 frame perfects on 60 FPS, but out of those 212, it has a staggering 78 frame perfects on 120 FPS. My bad for all the numbers to keep track of. Frame perfects do not make up an entire level's difficulty, but keep in mind that Grief has a lot more wave gameplay than Aeternus, and frame perfects with the wave are notoriously known for being just a little bit easier than frame perfects with something like Cube or Ship. So a good half of those frame perfects in Aeternus are made up by UFO, Cube, Ship, and ball clicks. I'm estimating that it's only about half of the frame perfects in Aeternus that are non-wave game mode, since look how easily the counter racks up in the wave sections.
You wasn't here when they noticed me. Gotta get so high just to go.
Alright, that was a lot to talk about, but the key takeaway is that Aeternus has many precise clicks throughout the entire level, which is why I think that it can only be verified with something like CBF, since doing all these clicks and execution on vanilla physics just seemed way too hard to get consistent at. CBF would make playing this level much more bearable, and frankly, make it humanly possible. I had to divide this part of the video into 2 halves since I have so much to cover, but now onto the next point of whether Aeternus is possible. Do we even think that with enough time passing that this level could be beaten at all? Not just even in the near future, I'm talking about nearly a decade from now. To answer this, let's take a look at the Impossible Levels list, a website that measures the hardest physically possible levels in the game. On the ILL, Tidal Wave and Amethyst place at a measly 691 and 677. Where does Aeternus land on here? At 394. That is over 280 spots higher than the current hardest level in the game. We're talking on skills greater than you could even think. This level clears anything in the difficulty range of Tidal Wave and Amethyst, and still much harder than many of the upcoming top ones. According to this list, Aeternus is harder than Sweeping Demon 2, Africa Circles, Silent Acropolis, Unnerved Misanthrope, Azure Flare, Unnerved Silent Clubstep, Minus World, and Unnerved Angelicide. Just wow. So what does this entail? I mean, the ILL can only be so accurate, and even they can make their mistakes from time to time. After all, once you reach these levels of difficulty, it's hard to decipher all the little nuances in a level to figure out if it's easier or harder than another mega impossible level. But for Aeternus, I think its placement feels just about right. It's definitely impossible for us today, just like all the other levels it's surrounded by, but do we really think we can reach this level of difficulty? Will we, the community, actually get good enough one day that we are able to play and even beat the impossible levels this high up on the list? For the sake of this video, sure, we're already treading the line on realistic and delusional. Why not kick it up a notch? That took up way more time than I thought it would, I'm gonna be real, but now we can finally move on. So now that we have come to the conclusion slash assumption slash compromise, or however you want to spin it, that Aeternus can and will be verified someday, the next question I present to you is, when? How close are we at this very moment to seeing the completion of Aeternus? Well, first, let's draw a comparison. When Aeternus was first released as a showcase, Ice Cave stated that the level was meant to be beaten someday in the far future, just as how Silent Clubstep was made. So let's use Silent Clubstep to draw a comparison on where we're at. As of July 14th, 2025, Aeternus' records include 15% from 0 by Chillguy and 79 to 100, plus a 71 to 98 run by Trick. Both extremely impressive achievements. Aeternus was showcased on October 17th, 2023, so that means we have gotten these two insane runs on level only a mere 636 days since its release. Now let's have a look at Silent Clubstep. And just hear me out for a second, okay? So Silent Clubstep was quote-unquote showcased on April 16th, 2015. The reason I say that is because the earliest video I was able to find proof of Silent Clubstep's release date was that it came out before the time that Zobros made their infamous practice run video of the level, effectively shining a light on it to the greater community. So from April 16th, 2015 to July 17th, 2022, it took 2,649 days for the level to be verified, or 7.25 years. That's a long time. Pivoting back to Aeternus, with all things considered regarding how good players are today, in addition to all the features we now have to play the game at the best of our ability, Aeternus getting verified in the year 2032 or before doesn't seem like that big of a stretch. Now hold on just a second. Zallitz, you really thought you'd get away with this? Silent Clubstep spent most of its lifetime just trying to clear the first 11%, and Paka was the first player to clear the pre-drop 2,318 days after the level showcase. That means Silent Clubstep spent roughly 6 of its years without anyone beating the pre-drop, and the last 331 days before it was verified was all progress made beyond 21%. I hear ya. This comparison still holds up pretty well in my eyes for a few reasons. For starters, 90% of the difficulty lies in the pre-drop in Silent Clubstep, that is where Aeternus' difficulty is pretty evenly distributed throughout the whole thing. That's why it took 6 years for the pre-drop to be cleared, but only 187 days for Aeternus' pre-drop to be cleared. You may think that, oh wow, this progress is moving along really well, but like I stated, Aeternus doesn't hold back. It stays hard the whole way through. I think Aeternus' progress chart will have a very linear shape to it, unlike the exponential graph that is Silent Clubstep. Another reason why the two graphs work in comparison is that we don't suck anymore. Most of Silent Clubstep's life was spent being played by a community that was not nearly as skilled and talented and technologically advanced as we are today. Would Silent Clubstep ever have been verified without the release of Megahack? Who knows. What I do know is that the mods like 360 Bypass for sure sped up the time it would have taken to complete the level. And this is probably going to be the case with Aeternus, just like how I said I only think it'll be beaten with CBF. So to wrap a neat little bow on this section, Aeternus could very well be verified in the same amount of time it took Silent Clubstep to be verified, but just at a very different progression rate. So on a hypothetical timeline, I'd say we are about here, a little less than a quarter of the way of it being beaten. Who's ready to wait 7 more years? But before we move on, I want to try and make a prediction. I think that someone will get 25% on Aeternus in roughly, I'd say another year or year and a half, closer to 2028. I'll be realistic. Now, to get to the meat and bones of the title of the video, how can Aeternus be verified? Well, let's have a look at where we are and what we would need to do to progress. We gotta do the same thing we did with Silent Clubstep. Since at the time, the hardest level beaten was Bloodbath, we need to close the gap. So first, if you really wanted to beat Aeternus, you gotta beat the top 3. Yep, Amethyst, Tidal Wave, and Nullscapes. There is no way of getting around that. I'm including Nullscapes instead of just saying to beat the top 2 because Nullscapes would actually assist you quite a bit in getting better at precision timing and whatnot. For a level like Aeternus, with these impossible gaps in timings, as well as ship frame perfects, a little Nullscapes couldn't hurt to beat. Alright, now you've beaten the top 3. Good work. What's next? Well, I think it would be best to beat levels like Heliopolis and Silent Acropolis, assuming they're verified at the time. And remember, this is like the super speculative part of the video. I get to share my imagination with you all, and you can't do a damn thing about it. But seriously, just remember that this is all hypothetical. I say Heliopolis and Silent Acropolis are good because, well, 1, they are harder than Amethyst and help close the skill gap, and 2, timings. I can't stress enough how important it is to be able to get consistent with timings, especially for a level like Aeternus, when the whole thing is frame perfects galore. So once you've beaten both or either of these levels, what is next on the agenda is honestly just a personal preference for me, but I think learning to alternate would be really beneficial for a level like Aeternus. It's not super CPS heavy like Angelicide, but it can get up there. Aeternus is very demanding level on your joints, and if you really wanted to take a crack at verifying this, alternating on a few clicks could really lighten the load on your index finger. I'm really trying to make alternating more mainstream since it actually helps out a lot more than you think. I tried convincing Kaza to learn to alternate on Angelicide. Since that level is so physically demanding, it left them too sore to play it the next day. But you can't please everyone, I'm afraid. Being able to do a few clicks with your non-dominant hand on Aeternus would really help you prevent hand pains and physical strain, especially if you were dead set about verifying it, because you're probably going to be playing it for years on end, so why not make it a little easier on yourself? Next up on the path to verification, you gotta have some endurance in you. Play some XXL levels. Beating the Misanthrope layout could honestly benefit you quite a bit with getting better at nerf control, since something like Aeternus, you do not want to lose your cool and start shaking on. But remember that Aeternus is only a minute long, so skipping on playing a super long level like that shouldn't have too big of an effect on you. But again, the main goal is to close the skill gap. If you were to be Misanthrope, that means you just shrunk the gap from 283 spots apart to about 214. Look at that! Progress is progress. And yeah, you may be thinking, beating all those levels only shrunk the gap by 69 spots? The ILL is no joke. I could go on and on listing a bunch of levels that would be good to beat on the road to Aeternus, but this video will become a million years long. I just listed the ones before since they were the most well known, but just to go quickly through a few good checkpoints on the goal to close the gap would be Orochi Full Deco, Huteo's Sadness, Unnerfed Asterios, Agony, Old Injury, Unnerfed Septon of a Clear, and a few others in the low 400 range. Did I randomly pick these levels? Yeah. The main purpose of beating these levels here is just to keep narrowing the skill gap, because a jump to Aeternus is just not going to happen, bro. Sorry to burst your bubble. You can choose any of these levels between 500 and 400 or whatever. I just listed these because why not? Again, these are just some random levels I picked out to back up my point of beating harder and harder levels in preparation for Aeternus would be the best angle to go about. Now, to the people watching this video who genuinely want to be the one to verify Aeternus, I know you're watching. I can see you. What you should take away from this video is that Aeternus is definitely not going to remain impossible for the rest of time. There's just no way. So if you really want to beat the level someday, you gotta use that sweet CDF. It'll make your life 10 times easier. Also, stay patient. This isn't a level that you're just gonna complete overnight. You heard me earlier. You know how long I think it's gonna take, and Aeternus getting verified in the 2030s doesn't seem that far-fetched if you think about it. And lastly, please try and beat some stuff on the side, man. You want to beat Aeternus? Beat a new hardest, and then another new hardest, and so on and so forth. You'll thank yourself later for all that improvement you gained through those new hardests. But hey, at the end of the day, what do I know? I'm just the numbers guy over here. Aeternus could very well be verified in the distant future, and this video is just meant to serve for entertainment purposes at the end of the day. Imagine the plot twist though, and I end up being the one to verify it. Yo, hello, am I muted? And with that, thank you all for sticking around until the end. I hope you all have a great day and take care. And remember, these were not facts, this was just a theory. A geometry dash theory. And cut.